Welcome to African American History Lesson 54. What connects Black freedom struggles in Mississippi, Accra, Havana, and Johannesburg? In this video, we will discuss the Pan-African Congresses and the decolonization of Africa and the Caribbean. In the 20th century, Black political thinkers and activists across the globe came to see their fights not as isolated, but as linked by common systems of racism, colonialism, and economic exploitation, and by a shared vision of liberation. Throughout the 20th century, the global Black freedom movement was shaped by a deep and evolving tradition of anti-colonial political thought. As African nations fought to liberate themselves from European rule and as African Americans confronted segregation and systemic racism, a transnational network of solidarity emerged across the African diaspora. Activists, writers, and intellectuals exchanged ideas, collaborated on strategies, and framed their local struggles within a broader context of racial justice and decolonization. From Pan-African congresses and anti-apartheid protests to the influence of leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Malcolm X, and Angela Davis, this era witnessed the rise of a distinctly diasporic political consciousness. Anti-colonial thought, the Black freedom movement, spanning from the mid-1940s of new Black the 1970s, built on was not confined to the borders of the United States and revolutionary change. It encompassed a global wave of activism rooted in the dismantling of racist, colonial, and imperialist systems. In the United States, it included the civil rights movement, which challenged and overturned Jim Crow laws through nonviolent resistance and legal reform, and the Black Power movement, which emphasized racial pride, cultural affirmation, and self-determination. Abroad, anti-colonial revolutions surged across Africa and the Caribbean, forming a broader context in which Black liberation movements mutually influenced and reinforced each other. These struggles shared not only a common enemy, white supremacy and colonial domination, but also a vision of Black autonomy and global solidarity. In the 1950s and 1960s, African American intellectuals, activists, and artists increasingly turned their gaze toward Africa, not only as an ancestral homeland, but as a living site of revolutionary transformation. Many traveled to newly independent or decolonizing nations to express solidarity and participate in the broader Pan-African project. These encounters deepened political consciousness and expanded the geographic imagination of the Black freedom movement. Figures such as Malcolm X and Maya Angelou championed the idea that the fate of African Americans was tied to the liberation of all African people, and that Black unity across borders was essential to dismantling racism globally. The Republic of Ghana's independence from British colonial rule in 1957 served as a major symbolic and strategic turning point for global Black political thought. African American leaders including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Pauli Murray, Maya Angelou, and W.E.B. Du Bois traveled to Ghana to witness and celebrate the historic achievement. For many, Ghana became a touchstone for diasporic solidarity and Pan-African aspiration, a living example of what a liberated African state could symbolize for the rest of the Black world. Du Bois, who died and was buried in Ghana, embodied the full circle of diasporic commitment of African sovereignty. Beyond the African continent, African Americans also looked to other parts of the global South to establish alliances against white supremacy and segregation. In 1960, famed boxer Joe Louis joined a largely African American delegation to Cuba, where they promoted the island as a destination free from the racial segregation that still gripped the U.S. South. These forms of black diplomacy blurred the lines between tourism, politics, and resistance, using travel as a means of challenging the legitimacy of Jim Crow and fostering connections with other nations pursuing racial and economic justice. As African Americans and Africans identified shared experiences of colonial exploitation and racial violence, they forged bonds of solidarity that extended the influence of the Black freedom movement beyond U.S. borders. These connections enriched both African American civil rights organizing and African anti-colonial struggles, creating a reciprocal network of support, strategy, and inspiration. The transnational dialogue allowed Black activists to reimagine liberations as a global project, not merely a national one. The impact of this diasporic solidarity became especially visible in 1960, designated the Year of Africa, when 17 African nations declared their independence from European colonial powers. This surge in African sovereignty was both celebrated and amplified by African American activists, journalists, and organizations. It signaled a moment of global reckoning with imperialism and inspired renewed commitments to racial justice in the United States. Though colonialism in its formal sense has declined, the legacy of Pan-African and anti-colonial solidarity continues to shape Black political thought into the present day, linking contemporary movements for justice across borders. In March 1957, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife, Coretta Scott King, traveled to Accra, Ghana, to attend the nation's independence celebrations at the invitation of Prime Minister Kwame Nkrumah. This historic event marked Ghana as the first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence from colonial rule, symbolizing a significant milestone in the global movement against imperialism. During his visit, Dr. King participated in a radio interview conducted by Etta Morton Barnett, in which he reflected on the profound significance of Ghana's independence. Dr. King's observations underscored the interconnectedness of global struggles for freedom and justice. He perceived Ghana's emergence from colonial rule as a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples worldwide, including African Americans fighting against segregation and racial injustice in the United States. This interview exemplified the transnational solidarity that characterized the Black freedom movement in the 20th century. Dr. King's experience in Ghana reinforced his commitment to nonviolent resistance and deepened his understanding of the global dimensions of the struggle for civil rights. The insights he gained during this visit influenced his subsequent speeches and writings, wherein he increasingly linked the African American civil rights movement to broader global movements for decolonization and human rights. The anti-colonial struggles of the 20th century reshaped Black political thought by forging powerful connections among African Americans and people of African descent across the globe. From Accra to Havana, Black writers, activists, and leaders envisioned liberation not as an isolated national project, but as a shared global imperative. Through Pan-African alliances, cultural exchange, and transnational protest, the Black freedom movement extended beyond the borders of the United States and became a model of diasporic solidarity. This era of political awakening revealed that the fight against white supremacy, colonialism, and racial capitalism was a collective struggle, one rooted in shared history and united by a vision of freedom that spanned continents. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, please follow us on the social media platforms listed on the screen.